It's being recorded. There we go. We will be recording this, so we'll have a copy of this that we can refer to if necessary. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started, and obviously there's going to be people joining after a little bit, but let's go ahead and get started and go into our newest version here. And I do want to remind everybody that your POC, your proof of concept demo site, or you're using for testing and so forth, they have been updated. So if you have logged in the last couple of days, you've actually been using the latest version, and you may have noticed some of these enhancements that are in the system here. So let me go ahead and switch over here to my browser. So you should be able to see my browser now. And you'll notice here I've got my agenda of topics. As usual, what I'm going to try to do is get through these items, and if there's time, I'll cover more items from the list, because there are certainly other things on there. I just thought these were kind of the big ones, and there are other things that are, not that they're not big, but maybe I just didn't have time. And so we'll cover those if we can. All right, so let's get started on onboarding enhancements. And you can see actually there's a lot going on with onboarding enhancements here. So it's kind of why I'm leading. It's the big one. So let's talk about this. And as you're probably aware, we have had the new onboarding now for a couple of releases, and we keep adding new features to it to make it better. So we've added a bunch of new things to it in this release. So let's go to the settings, and we'll look at some of these things in here. So I'm actually right here in onboarding already under HR administration. And so we can look at this right here and what's new. So I'll open up this onboarding list, and if you've been in here and looked at an onboarding list within the last several months, when we've after we release this is going to look familiar. However, there is enhancements in here. So I'm going to just kind of start with emailing. So right now what happens, or previously what happened, is when you added an employee to self-service, it did send them a notification and it showed them how to log in, and you can go to your notification layouts and you can change that message to whatever you like with instructions and things like that. But now we've included a separate email that can go out as a welcome email to the company. And so you'll see here, I've got a subject line right there, welcome to AFC Richmond in my example here. And then I have a email that will go out to the employee. And of course, you can do whatever you like as far as this email is concerned, type in whatever you want, use your different fonts and so forth to, have that information in there. So that's where the email would come from. And each onboarding list can have a welcome email. If you like to have different onboarding lists, you may have, ones for different departments or job titles or locations or something like that. So you're certainly welcome to have different welcome emails if you need to. All right, next is a welcome video, and I'm going to show you what this will look like from the new employee's perspective here in a moment, so you'll kind of get an idea. But this allows you to include a video in the header area of the onboarding. And like I said, I'll show you this in a moment so you can see what it's going to look like, but it allows you to have a video there. Perhaps you've got one from your CEO or something like that. The key thing is you do need to put the video in the system first before you can add this here. So if you've never done a video in our system, adding one to the system, what you'll see is under the general settings, you'll notice videos right here. And I have some already configured here. You'll see this is the one that I added for my welcome video. And certainly you can have different welcome videos, again, for different onboarding lists if it makes sense. And doing this is very simple. The description for the video, and then the URL of the video. We do not host videos. So if you have your own video that your marketing department has produced, you'll need to publish it somewhere. It could be on your own website or something like that, but it needs to be published. We don't host it itself. So in my example, I used YouTube, and this is my video. Now, I did not make it public. If I did make it public, what that means is in self-service, just to show you this, if you go down here to company videos, you would be able to see it. But because I didn't make it public, it doesn't show here, but I can still show it in the onboarding. So it allows me to kind of just have it for specifically onboarding in that situation. That's what the public would allow me to do there. All right, so once I have this added here, I can then go to onboarding and I could select it. You'll see, obviously, I got all three of them there, but I would select the one that's appropriate in the situation. So that's the welcome video here. There's a couple of things that we want to talk about. One is the assigning of an onboarding buddy. So sometimes there's somebody who's going to help that new employee through the onboarding process. It's not necessarily a manager, could be a colleague, somebody who sits near them in the office or something like that. So you might want to assign an onboarding buddy. So that is going to be a new task that you can add down here. And I've already added one. You'll see onboarding buddy here, but very simple to do this. What you would do is you would click add. You'll notice here the group. Now I have 4 groups in here. You might have other groups you want to define and add others. You're certainly welcome to do that. I put it under meeting and communication. The type would be assign buddy, and then you would select the buddy. Again, just like with other things, you can have multiple onboarding lists with different buddies for different lists and so forth. And if you needed to, you don't need to attach it to the list. You can actually go to the employee after you assign the onboarding list, and you could assign a buddy directly on their onboarding screen. So you can do that if you need to. You just select the buddy, and you'll see here you can search. You'll notice here the name and the employee number, et cetera. You can use this to search and find the person that you want to use as their onboarding buddy. Right, and then give it a name here. Onboarding buddy is what I call it, but you can call it anything you like. So that's adding an onboarding buddy. And then we changed a little bit on how people to meet works. So previously it was up here where you would select one or more people to meet underneath the welcome message. We've added it now as a task. And the reason we did this is because we want to be able to mark it as it being completed. So tasks can be marked as completed. So that's why we added it down here. So you'll see, I already have a person to meet here, and I can go ahead and add that person right here. So again, very similar, choosing a group. You'll notice here, people to meet is an option. And then I can search for, individual by selecting employee, a certain position. Maybe, it's the CEO or, the HR generalist or something like that. So you could put that as the person to meet there, or maybe you want them to meet with their manager or supervisor or whatever you determine your organization types. All right. So if I choose supervisor, I can then even say level 1, 2, 3, et cetera. Level 1 would be their direct supervisor. 2 would be the supervisor's supervisor, et cetera. So you could use that right there. Here, if you want to set a deadline for when they need to meet them, you can put a due date. So, within 3 days or 5 days or something like that. All right. Now, what will happen when you assign this and then you sign the onboarding list is it will notify not only the employee that, here's a person to meet, they'll see that on onboarding, but it will also notify that person who's selected that, you need to meet with new employee, whoever it is. So there's kind of a dual communication there. All right. I wanted to point out another thing on here. I didn't have them on my list, but here you'll see the author of the welcome message is now something where you can choose who that person is in the welcome message. And again, I'll show you when I assign this list and where it looks like the employee. But previously it was just the org type 1 person, whoever that was. But now you could choose a person because you might want it from, the CEO, you may want it from HR, you may want it from, whoever. So you can now select the author of this message right here. Just simply, choose employee and find the employee, choose a position like, somebody in HR or something like that. Or you could choose the org types. In my situation, I kept it as the manager 1, but you could do whatever you like as far as that's concerned. All right, and let's look at assigning this to the employees and how you can do multiple assignments. So I went ahead and I hired a new person. So I'm going to add the onboarding list to this new person, and I'm going to show you what it looks like from that person's perspective. So let me go over to the new person. I added Jody here. And one of the new enhancements we have is before, when you hired somebody and you've finished all the steps after onboarding and everything, you added the tasks, it would take you to the onboarding list, which is an okay place to go. But a lot of times you want to add their security profile so they can log in. So now this is actually where we go after the new hire process is complete. it will come to this screen so you can assign them their security profile so they can log in. What also happens is we do still send notifications out to employees, even if they're not a user yet. So if they're not a user and you want to send them that welcome message and they need to do stuff, it's going to notify them. You don't need to go in and hit the notify button, which you had to do before. You had to set them up and then go back and hit notify. Now it's going to notify them, and then you can set up their login kind of after the fact. So it comes here first. As you can see, I've already set up a user here. So she's already configured. I'm going to go to onboarding for her, and I'm going to assign the onboarding list for her. So you'll see here, oops, not manage. I want to add a list, and I'll go ahead and just choose that one that I just did, onboarding task list. And I'm going to make it the primary. So this is another thing, because you might assign multiple lists to people. You want to have it show the correct, message and things like that up at the top. Well, let's choose one as the primary. So I'm going to set this one as primary. If I had 3 or 4 of them, of course, I could choose a different one if I wanted to. So I'll set that one as primary. And then I'm going to add a second list in here. Now, when I do this, it's possible that I already have some of the tasks here on the other lists that I add. So I set mine up, it doesn't do that. However, if you have that situation, in fact, let me show you. I'm going to do that real quick. I'm going to kind of make a problem here. I think the address review is there. I'm going to add this to my new list here, address review. It's under system tasks and address review. So this is already on my other list. And what it's going to do is it's going to let me know like this already exists, and it's not going to duplicate it. That was the thing that we solved with this one previously. If you had it on multiple lists, let's say assign, address review would be on there twice. And obviously you don't need them to check it twice. It isn't Christmas, so, they don't need to check it twice. So we've eliminated that. You'll get an error message letting you know, well, not an error, but you'll get a message letting you know it's not being added twice. All right, so let me go back to Jody and here, and I'm going to add that other list here called driver onboarding. I'm not going to make it my primary. And you'll see here, address review is already on the onboarding list, so it doesn't add it. And it will look at these different things. If I had address review and open enrollment and I don't know, whatever else, it would put down everything that found as duplicate. And we are very thorough in that. If you, for example, say form, it won't just say, well, you already have a form on there. It will look at the type of form, like which form was it that was assigned. And if it's the same form assigned, it will stop you. Same thing with people to meet. Well, you might have different people to meet. As long as they are unique, it's not going to see that as duplicate. But if I try to add the same person, that's when it would let me know. All right, so here you'll see all the things that were assigned to this employee. And so you can see all those. And of course, I can still manually add something. If I try to manually add a duplicate, it will let me know that, if I did address review, it already exists. So it won't let me do it again. All right, so I've added all these things to this person. Let me go ahead and switch my browser view over to her view so you can see what's going to happen. And she's going to have a nice onboarding list. I don't think she's done everything. She would have, of course, also received the email. Let me just switch this over. Apologize for a little bit of delay. I do this, and here we go. Okay, so I've already logged in as Jody, and now I see the onboarding thing. So here you'll see the enhancement. It does say Albert Carpenter, that's your manager. So it says your manager. If I chose like the CEO and it's not her manager, it would say CEO. Or if I chose human resources, it would say the job title there. It only says your manager or your supervisor if you assign the org type. All right, there's the message that's, here you can see the video. So I can click on this and watch the video. If it doesn't show in here for whatever reason, then you can go to the link, but there's the video if I want to do that there. Here you'll see people to meet. All right, so you'll notice here I have a deadline to meet with Jody. And I don't know, I have myself in there. I should have made sure there, but here I can mark it as completed. I also, if I were to log in as the other person, if it wasn't myself, I would see that I need to meet with Jody. So that would be there. Of course, I see my tasks that I need to do. This is nothing new there. One of the things is you might want to have them upload documentation. So here you'll see like, oh, you need to upload your driver's license and proof of insurance. So they can go out there and upload whatever those are. I'll just pick couple of documents here. And there we go. So a couple things there just to kind of show you what that is like. That's not new, but I wanted to show you something because it's related to an enhancement. Here you'll notice my buddy is listed separately. So here I can click on them and see their information and how do I contact them. And so I'm able to see all these things out here. So the one thing I can't really show you, I can go to an email, but I can't really show you the email that she did receive, the email with the subject and of course, the message out there welcoming her to the company. So that's how that works there. And you can see the enhancements on the onboarding. All right, so the next thing that I do want to show you is an enhancement we made to the community and the engagement there. I'm going to switch back over to my other browser because she doesn't have access to it and show you this here. So we added in self-service a little option to do what we call a daily recap. This is something that maybe you want to have your team share what they've been doing on a daily basis because, you know, they're all remote or something like that. And you just want a little recap of what they did for the day. Obviously, that's not going to be a community feed because, you know, that would just get flooded with like different messages, little messages about what they did. So we have this second option here to do a daily recap. Now, of course, this does need to be set up first before you can do that. And so if you go to your communities here under employee engagement, you can add one or more daily recap communities here. So how do you do that? There's a new checkbox you'll notice right here called daily recap. Now, it doesn't need to be named daily recap. You can call it anything you like, of course, but this enables that option to anybody in the group here. So Ted, the person I'm logged in now, is in this group called hourly. Therefore, he sees this one. The other person was not in that group, so they didn't see that one. So it does look at the group in there. And you'll notice here you can have, of course, more than one group if you need to. And you, of course, want them to be able to post to it if you expect them to post. Now, if they're just going to be reading, then they can just be, you know, read only. But, you know, if you want them to post, you can do that right there. All right, so you would set up this first as a new community out there, and then they would be able to click on daily recap and they can put down, I showed off the new software, right? And put that in my daily recap community and post that. Right, so you can see that right there. That's a daily recap there. It's a little different than the community because it's separated and obviously it's a second community really. So you can have your main one that you're sending messages out, and then this one is available right there. So that's what the daily recap's for, and it's out there. All right, let's look at effective and end dates for projects, sub-projects, tasks, and subtasks. So this is really nice if you do have things that have, you know, an end date, and you don't want people to use that after the end date, or something starts next month and you don't want people adding time on their timesheet until that date. So of course, this is another thing that we need to set up. So let me go over to here, and it's going to be under each one of these things. So projects, sub-projects, tasks, and subtasks. Let me show you what that will look like. You'll notice these two new columns here, effective date and expiration date. And if there's nothing there, which is how it would be to you now in your POC or, you know, clients when the update's released, nothing is going to change, because if they don't have a date in there, it's just going to let them use that as long as it's active, of course, here, and it's assigned to the employee. So, you know, they would still be able to use it just like they're doing today. It's not going to affect anything going forward. However, maybe this Texas pipeline is ending in the near future. You'll notice here the two date fields, and maybe it ended yesterday. All right, so you'll see here it ended yesterday. In fact, let me say it ends today, and I'll show you on the timesheet. So that one ends today, and let's just pretend this general work one isn't going to start until tomorrow. So I'm going to put an effective date of tomorrow. All right. Now, of course, I can have both an effective date and an expiration date because something starts and eventually will end. So you can have both of those populated if you need to, or they can be blank. And this applies under when I hit show and active. It's not active yet, so that's why I need to see that. It does work with this here. So we are looking at these dates as well as this toggle to choose to show that. So you'd want to, you know, turn that on. That works to things like sub projects as well. If you're using those, you'll see effective date and expiration date. So again, you can come in here, put those in, tasks, effective date, end date, maybe task B expires today or something like that. Now, if this is assigned to somebody, it will ask you, do you want to expire it on the employee so that you can do that? And that especially if they have a future expiration date, maybe on the employee task, you have 7/31, but now this project really ends on 7/17, it will move up the expiration date on the employee to 7/17 because you can't have any entries after this date. So this is kind of like the master record, and then it will go out there and update all the child records on the employees. Okay, and then subtasks, sub-projects, of course, have those same things. So you'll see the subtask and sub-project. So obviously, if you're not using all four of them, you're just using projects, you don't need to worry about the other three. And of course, maybe just projects is where you worry about that. The other things are kind of subordinate to projects. So if once a project ends, you would not be able to use the tasks and so forth underneath it because the project is done. All right, so where does that go on the timesheet? Let me go into a timesheet so you can see. All right, so here you can see, time entries, and I can put a time entry today and choose Texas pipeline. You'll see that one called general work is not here because it starts tomorrow. So I can do Texas pipeline today and 4 hours or whatever. All right, and then tomorrow, Texas pipeline is not there, but general work is because this one starts tomorrow. So now I can choose that. And so you can see how that works there. It's using those effective dates to do that. And then the same thing with the subtasks or the task in the same situation. If I had a task that ended tomorrow or something like that, I would not be able to use it Friday. So task B, which is here today, is not going to be there on Friday because I made it expire on the 18th. So you can see how it does work for all four levels. I don't have all four levels enabled, but it does work for all four levels. So that would be the effective date and expiration dates for projects and sub-projects and those things right there. So if you would like to use them, you can. We also did, I'm 99.9% sure, update the templates to import so you can include those in your imports if you're importing data for your clients. All right, so that's that. Let's look at some of the succession planning enhancements that are available. So succession planning, as you may be aware, has been around for a couple of releases now, but we are enhancing that as well based off of feedback from clients and partners. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. I'll go over to succession planning just so you can see where this is configured. So in case you haven't used it, or maybe you don't remember from the webinar, especially if you haven't used it since then, since I showed it, you may not remember exactly where it is. So I'm going underneath a position, and you'll see we have succession planning right here, where you can mark this as a key position, put in the flight risk, the impact of loss, and positions that would be considered successors. So you can add one or more positions in here as successors to that position. So you might say accounting supervisor and, I don't know, accounts receivable or something like that. So you can add those in there as necessary. So not only will it look for people in these positions, but also under recruiting, you can put down the competencies and skills that are used in that succession planning for evaluating both the internal people and now external candidates. So here you'll see I have a couple of competencies and a few skills that are added to this particular position. So you would need to go through to the various positions where you're doing succession planning and not only put in, that it is a key position, but what are the competencies and skills? Because that helps you look at your talent pool and evaluate, who is top talent and, who would be, maybe the top successor if somebody were to leave. All right, so, update that on the position as necessary. Of course, if you have approvals on your positions, you'd have to get that approved before it would show up under the succession planning. But succession planning is right here in the administration. So if you go to your settings, you'll see succession planning over here, and you open it up and you'll see talent pool. Now I've already selected that position here for CFO. And you can see I've already said that Elsie Hale is one of my successors for this. Now you'll see one of the things that we fixed based off of feedback is that previously it would actually show the same position right here. This is their current position rather than like the successor position. So this would show the ones that are in. And here you can see I can add internal successors. It's going to look for people in those various jobs, and I can select them, one or more people, to add to that. And it will show their internal position titles here. All right, now the percentage of match is going to look at the various competencies and skills and how well does each person match up to it. So in my situation, Elsie here, she gets 40%, not too bad. She still needs a little bit of training to be ready, but right now she's our top candidate because everybody else is at 0. So I've indicated that. Here I can click into her, and this is one of our enhancements. I can see the skills and competencies that are related for this position. You may remember those when I was looking at the position. And now we show suggested learning. So what we're looking at here is I have at least one course out there that has these skills attached to it. And if you're not familiar with where that is, that's going to be under your courses, which I have open here. You'll see I have one here called ERP Learning. And down here, I can put skills and or competencies that their person's going to earn by taking this course. So I've added ERP as a skill once they take this ERP training course. All right, now obviously I didn't do a full setup of a training course. I might have like a SCORM file or a link. I just put it to Google. That's not relevant for this thing here, but just gives you an idea. You might have skills or competencies here. So when I go over to the talent pool here and I click on an employee, it'll show me suggested learning based off of that setup over there in the courses. So it's saying, oh, ERP is suggested learning. It will give me this skill. Do I want to assign it to Elsie? So I might want to assign that to her. So, maybe it's not already assigned. Go ahead and assign that to her right here. Okay, so now if I were to log in as Elsie or I go to her record, I'm going to see that that course was assigned to her. And of course, when she completes that satisfactorily, now she'll get that skill called ERP. So that's how that would work right there. Now, there's nothing more to suggest because I've assigned all the training. And of course, you might develop more training that now gives you, this employee humility or something like that. So then that would show up. All right, so that's how that works here. And of course, I can do that for anybody else that I wanted to do that here. Now, when I'm adding my successors here, you'll see I do get some options to do some more searching. You'll notice here where I can do searching. I only have those 3 people. Let me just trash can them just to show you the search. So when I'm adding these, I can now do some searching in here because you might use a position where there's 20 employees that show up or something like that, or you got several positions and you have a whole bunch of employees. You don't want to just necessarily put everybody there. Maybe you want to look at the percentage of match, and those people who have a certain percentage, you add them. Or you might say, oh, I want to search for a certain skill or competency or something like that out there. And so these various fields, skills, competencies, certifications, degrees, field of study, position, and the experience in that position are all here. So you can come out here and say, oh, I want to find somebody with at least 3 years of experience in this. Okay, well, that's everybody. So maybe I'll go more, 8 years of experience. Now, nobody's got 8. So obviously you can kind of use this to find the people. This person's got 5 years of experience. Let's add them. So you'll see how that works there. And of course, they can work together. If I want to see somebody with 5 years of experience who has a bachelor's in a particular field of study, I can do that. If that person doesn't, so I want to eliminate that. But you get the idea how that might work. And you can, of course, clear all your filters and get people back. So that's the internal successors. We've also added external successors. So this will search through the candidate pool. Again, you have these search options up here where you can search through your candidates and then see who has various match, degree of match out here. So you see 20% for Shelly and for Brian. So, everybody else is 0. Probably not a very good match for them, but these people match up at least on the competencies or skills. So I might want to add them in there, just kind of see where they're at. Now, you might want to say, yes, that is important on these competencies and skills, but I also need them to have a certain degree, or they got to have, a certain position in their history, something like that. So you can search for that information if you need to. You'll see here, I can search for the employer, stuff like that. So I can narrow it down more if I like, but these two are probably pretty good. So let's go and add them out there. And so now they're here as external. You'll see the icon. This is internal, this is external. That's how you know the difference between the two. And I can click on these people and see, of course I can't assign training to them because they're external. All right, so that's not an option. But if they were to be hired, they would still show up here, but now I can assign training to them. So that is the enhancements to the succession planning with the external, internal, as well as the searching and the ability to assign. So you'll see right there, that's that in there. Let's look at workflow tracking enhancement. This is an enhancement that's pretty small, but actually very, very useful, because you may recognize that sometimes when you're going through your workflows and maybe you need to make a change or something like that, you just want to know what's outstanding. You have to click on each one, or you have to clear out the history, and the only thing that's remaining is the stuff that's outstanding, which is not ideal because you may want that history. So what I'm talking about is, let's say I go into my timesheets and I don't know which ones are outstanding, which ones are not approved, etc. I can now go into the tracking, and the status is right here. So I can know right away what is completed and what is still open that needs to be completed. So I can now do this. I can, sort by this if I need to find those things and say, oh, you know what? These 4 people or whatever it is, they need to get these things done. I can now click in here and reassign it or approve it or something like that. But very easily see what's outstanding without having to delete or to click through each one and find the appropriate one. So a really nice enhancement. I don't remember who suggested that, but from somebody who has to sometimes go and clean up data, this is very nice to be able to find exactly what's outstanding and not completed. So I really like that. If it was one of you that suggested it, thank you so much for that enhancement. Like I said, it's not a big one, but it can be very big. So I really like that workflow tracking enhancement there. All right, enhanced code table management. So this is one where you may have seen a couple of things as I'm going through here that you're saying, what is that little icon that is sometimes showing up? So when you're now on various screens in the system, you will see an icon to be able to edit the code tables. So of course you can go to the code table and do something in the system if you need to. So let's say I'm back here in my onboarding list and I've got these various groups. I can't remember maybe necessarily what are, where are those set up. When I put my mouse over this, I have this little icon that shows up that I can click on, and I can see the various codes that are here. I can add new codes. I can see anything that's inactive, or I can tell the system, let's go and jump to the settings for onboarding group. All right, because there's a lot of code tables out there. You may not know the exact name of the code table, and you have to search around for it and stuff like that. So this makes it very easy. I can add a new code in here, new code and description, and get the various settings out there for that. And this is really throughout the system here. I happen to be in onboarding to do this, but let's say I go over to an employee's record, and I'll pick on Jody here again, and maybe I'm looking in her demographics, and I want to edit the gender or the marital status or the citizenship or one of these other fields as a drop-down menu. I can go in there and say, you know what, she's not from any of these countries. I need to put a new one in here that, doesn't exist. And maybe you need to put, UK or Germany or something like that. So you can come in here. All right, you'll notice I can put down settings for this one because this one has some attributes. I can put that there. If you want to put it for another language, you can, of course, do that and then save that. And now this will be available in the drop-down menu for me to use that new setting in there. And of course, I could do that for other ones as well, where I have drop-downs, these that are on demographics, but I can, now see those out there. And now I can use Germany as an example. All right. And as I mentioned, that'll be on other screens as well. So, go to the primary position, go to benefits, go to other screens where you've got drop down menus. It's going to be to know this one, of course, is a little unique in that it's, everything's kind of frozen here until you hit edit or new action. But once I do that, I can then again add a code. If I want to go to that setting, like I said, and hit open settings, that does open a new tab, but it goes to the position action, that exact table name. So you can see everything that's here. You can edit as necessary from here, and then, jump back to that screen. Now, the difference is if I add a code here, I would have to refresh the screen here versus if I add it using this, it does refresh it automatically. And so it's already in there. But, maybe you just want to jump to that code table and look at something, and maybe you need to, do something in here. I don't know, but you can get the idea. Easy to jump around. All right. So that is another one of those fantastic enhancements that is, I kind of buried it down here. It's not something that's really flashy like onboarding, but yeah, I think it's going to be extremely useful. It does take, to be honest, it takes a little getting used to, because a lot of people are used to just like clicking over in certain areas when they're hitting the mouse. And so make sure you don't accidentally click on the settings. Like I said, it just took me, maybe 5 minutes to get used to because I kind of don't always click on the drop down arrow, and I just click randomly in the box. And sometimes I was clicking the settings button. So, that's what's going to happen. I'm sure sometimes it's going to click and go, oh, well, why did this pop up? And, so there you go. So that is the enhanced code table management. Now I'm getting towards the bottom here, but there are some other things like I mentioned, I am going to cover, but let's look at mass downloading documents. So you may remember that I did upload some documents for Jody when I did her onboarding. And so if I go to her onboarding, she has completed this uploading documents. All right, so this included a couple of documents, and I can individually download these if I need to by clicking on those two things there, or I can right here download those documents. So that'll download both documents in a zip file. I'm not sure if it shows in the preview here, but it downloaded it into a zip file. And so those documents are going to be included in a zip file if you do where you're uploading documents to the task called document request. So that's available here. I did want to remind you that this is also available in the documents themselves. If I go to a document screen, I don't know where those two are located. Let me just see if I can find them real quick here. Let's just, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to add a couple of documents just so I can see it, but you can mass download documents from here as well. So if I add a couple of documents in here, let me just drag and drop. I can mass upload from here as well. And so let me just, okay, so I uploaded a couple of documents for her. So I can now download mass documents out of here. So here, of course, I can download one document by clicking here. If I check the box, this will download one document. But if I check up here and do all or select individual, let's say I had 10 documents, I just wanted these two, I can use this to download multiple documents for employees if I need to. All right, so this is on the employee record. It's also something that's available under documents in here as well. So if I go to documents, I can do mass downloads over here as well. So I might have something in, I think that was the personnel. I don't remember which folder I put them in, but I can, find an employee and I can mass download over here. So very simple to do that. What was her name? I don't remember where I put those personnel. There they are. I can mass download here. So this is available in a couple of places to do that mass downloading if you need to. On the onboarding, if it was through onboarding, as well as on the employee record. So very useful. Let's say you get an audit, they need you to download, the last 5 years of performance reviews, but you weren't using our system, you downloaded or you uploaded some PDFs, you can very easily get that information out. So that's mass downloading of documents. Now I've reached the end here, but you may have noticed one of our enhancements right here is a reminder that somebody's password is expiring in a certain amount of time. So in your security, you might set up password to expire on a certain time frame. Mine is 90 days. Well, it's very close to 90 days. So Ted now sees that his password expires in 6 days. So within 7 days, this message here will show up in self-service as a reminder ahead of time that they need to change their password. Now, they may not have time today to do it. They're going to do it tomorrow. So they can dismiss this message, and that'll dismiss it until the next day. So if I hit dismiss now, when I log in tomorrow, I'm going to see the message again. If I log in again today, I won't see it because I dismissed it for the day. If I do want to change it, I can hit change it now, and it'll, excuse me, it'll take me over to my password screen where I can put in my old password and my new password and update that information. So that's how I can do that. That was a great suggestion, because sometimes people, they don't know it's expiring. They have to log in real quick to do their timesheet, and now all of a sudden they got to change their password, and it's just a little bit of a delay. This allows them to know ahead of time. Of course, doesn't mean somebody's going to dismiss it for 7 days and then run into that problem. But hey, at least now you've let them know about that. All right, a couple of other things I wanted to talk about that I didn't put on the list because I wasn't sure if it was going to happen. So one is, if you do a future time off request, it will now create the timesheet for that employee automatically. So in the older version, you had to create the timesheet for somebody for it to populate down that they were off in the future. So let's say I was going to say next, or not next week because I'm on a bi-weekly, but maybe next month I had some time off. What will happen is it will create that timesheet when the pay period comes around, so I don't have to remember to do that. Very useful, especially if somebody's out for the entire pay period, and so they never clock in, and maybe the manager doesn't notice that their timesheet wasn't created. It will now create it for them. So I can come out here, and let's just say I'm going to do it 29th. I'm just looking at these dates here. Let's say the 12th through the 23rd, all day. So this is going to be 2 full weeks, the entire pay period for this person. And when this is approved, oh, I have negative. Okay, so that's too much. You might not have that time available. Okay, so when that pay period rolls around, the 12th, the pay period that includes the 12th, it will create the timesheet for them. So you don't need to remember to create that timesheet. Very nice little feature out there. I'm trying to recall, I believe we have it, so you have to actually still request that or schedule a task. I don't know if one of our guys can let's talk about that real quick. Do we need to have a task for that, or does it do it automatically? I don't know if any of our team is.
Daily system task, Steve.
It is daily system. Okay, so as long as you have the daily system task turned on, which you should, but if you don't, let's make sure you do have that. So it's not a separate task, but you do need to have your task scheduler and the daily system task enabled. So this needs to be turned on. You'll see this right here, daily system task. And it doesn't need to be called daily, but you do need to set that up there. That will create the timesheet. And like I said, what's going to do is the first day of that pay period, it's going to look and say, oh, he's got time off, and it will create the timesheet for him. So you don't need to remember. So that's what that will do right there. And let me look here. A couple of things I wanted to talk about if I had a chance, and I now do. So if you ever use the 0B template to add employers and or work location, we've now reorganized that a little bit. So when I go to the 0 templates here, you'll see that we now have 0B employers and 0C work locations. So we kind of bumped everything down. Work locations used to be in employers, but sometimes you add a work location without an employer. You add, you're expanding or you're doing job sites, and those are different work locations. So now we have the 0C template for work locations only. Of course, you can download the template to see that new template, and now you can just add work locations by themselves using this 0C template that's out there. All right, so that is another nice new enhancement that came from one of our clients that adds work locations all the time. So we added that in there. I wanted to point out also under payroll, under the GL account map, we now have the ability to search in here. So if you're looking for, you're probably gonna have a little bit more than 10 accounts in here. Like on my account map, if you have hundreds or thousands, which is certainly possible, you can now search in here. So allows you to easily find accounts that match that criteria in there. I'm trying to recall the how many or what it searches. I know I have this in my notes and I don't remember what it is. Hiring managers. And then after this, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the enhancements in recruiting. But this allows you to search within here. Let me just let's see if it will. There we go. So you see like my credit account net pay for that one. And of course I can clear it out. And then if I'm looking for salary, it's going to show salary. So you can search among the screen here. All right, let's look at recruiting for a second because there are a couple of nice enhancements over there that were added. So I'll switch over to recruiting. Here you go. You can see my candidates here. So one is we've added 2 columns here that were not here before. So this will show the job title for the candidates as well as the hiring status. So this is the job title that they have applied for. And so you can see that there. Now, if there's multiple, you have this little drop down and you can see the 2 or more that they have applied for. So you can easily jump right to that appropriate record. So for William Campbell here, if I want to look at his pitch maintenance one, that'll allow me to look at that right there. I can see which one he's at. All right, so now I'm looking at pitch maintenance. So that is a new thing in there. Once we are in here, you'll see that we've actually done a little bit of a cleanup of the information in here. So previously, I believe it was just called profile. Now we've kind of split out the employment and the profile into separate things here. We've also added, as you can see here, we have awards, and these go over to the employee now. Previously, they stayed here and they didn't go over to the employee. We've added awards to the employee side. So if anybody has awards that get added, maybe through your application or something like that, those awards will go over to the employee record when or if this person gets hired. But you'll see now education, skills, competencies, awards, and certifications. Remember, competency is for that external successor. So these are here. And of course, I can add that in there for that person. And then the employment history, which was under profiles, is now broken out into its own separate place over here. All right, so you can kind of see what that looks like if you've never seen that before. So that is broken out there under the candidate. Of course, this is also visible here. When I go to my jobs, let me cancel out of here. When I go to my jobs, I can see that here. Why is it not? Refresh that. Okay, so if I go into the job and then I go to my candidates, now it doesn't show the job because I'm already in there, but once I get into the candidate, then it's still broken out there. All right, we also have, I believe it's in here, I didn't check beforehand because I wasn't sure if I was going to get to it. Yes, the ability to clone a position. So let's say you have an open position, it's been open for 850 days, you kind of want to get rid of this older one and start a new one. You can clone a open position out here by selecting the checkbox over here on the left and clicking clone. So you'll notice here when I do this, it allows me to change the title if I need to, maybe change the location or the status. So I can do any of these things out here. And maybe I want to say this is in Hartford. All right, so you'll notice here, even the requisition number, if I want to change that, this was requisition 2, and it looks like I already have some other ones. Let me just make this number 10 or something like that. I can also tell it to move the candidates from one position to another. So I can do this if I want to, and then it will say, let me do that by status, because you may have rejected some candidates and you don't want to include them. So you have this multi-select where you can select one or more candidate statuses in there. So perhaps you probably don't want to include people who are hired, but you hired somebody, people who are contacted, interviewing, those types of things. You still want to copy them over because they're good. They're just not the person you hired, and you want to copy those people over. And so it's not a copy; it's a move. It moves them over from the old requisition, the old job, into the new one. All right. And here we do get this confirmation. You may be familiar with this if you've ever done like the mass terminate. Similar thing is telling you you're going to move two candidates, and you need to confirm it by typing in the number. So just like that. Okay. So now I have that second ticket seller one that will show up here, and here it is. And there's going to be two candidates that were there. They were previously up in here. They've moved down to this one. Okay, everything else did a copy. So if I needed to now change the dates or something like that, I could go there. Of course, the description, all of this stuff is a copy. So that is the cloning in there. And then finally, I did want to talk about reports. And what we've done in reports is that when we're looking at payroll reports, I'm in HR, when we're looking at payroll reports, we've gone through, I think, every report, if not everyone, almost every single one of them. And we now have the ability to do department, position, assignment detail, title, employee group, hire date, and work location. So we've added all of these different search fields down here on top of what was already available within the various reports. Again, we're hearing your feedback that, you need more reporting options out there for searching and so forth. So we've added that to the payroll, the taxes, the timesheets, and the tax filing reports. So all of these reports under payroll that have options like that, the taxes, taxable wages totals, etc., and then the tax filing reports as well. So you'll be able to do all those settings if you need to, do something in your W-2s, you need to search for a certain department or something like that. And then I don't have any Carrier Connect files, but if you are using Carrier Connect files, it's something I can't really show, but I can talk about it. But we now have carrier feed reports that you can do that, and that will store a secure copy of what has been sent in your documents. You're able to go back and see copies of the files that were sent. Previously, you had to reach out to support, and we could provide those to you. But now you can go out there and see those. As I mentioned, I don't have any Carrier Connect files in here. Maybe I need to get one for the demo. But if I had one here, I could find and I could do that out here. So I would need to have a carrier file. I'll have our team maybe add one for me, and then I could search for that. And then I could see those files out there, and I could download files if I need to. So if you had a carrier file that went and now you've had another one that goes or something like that, you can go back and get the older versions of those files. All right. Trying to think if there's anything else out here that's big that I want to talk about that I wasn't sure I was going to get to. Let's see. Yes. Enhancements to the candidates for hiring managers. So I do want to talk about that out there. So when you are in here as a hiring manager and you're looking at your candidates, you now have more abilities out here for your candidates. So let me click on this person here as an example. I can now do things like schedule an interview for the candidate. So I don't have to have the recruiter do that. I can come out here and fill in the information in here for the interview. So, it's a video interview or whatever it is, the different settings out there, and choose the interviewers, the template, and so forth. All the stuff that I could do as a recruiter, I can now do here as a hiring manager. All right, so that is in there. If you need to see the emails that have been sent, you're able to see those emails as well as send emails if you want to. So you'll see here, the person's email address. I want to, who it's from, put my email address in there, a subject line. Maybe I want to use a template or add some documents. Here's the email message. And then I can also see the history of what was sent out. So I'm able to see that information out there. All right, attachments. So here I can view and add attachments to the candidates if I need to do that. You'll notice here the talent profile and employment history is again broken out separately. You can't add anything in here, but it is broken out separately, so you can see that there and see that information. The of course the discussion, which is where your notes would be, so you can do that. So we've allowed hiring managers to be able to do that if you need to allow them to do that. So it still does look at things like the privacy settings and so forth. So if you have questions out there that are personal questions, you've marked them as that way. Of course, their demographics information, if you've marked it to hide that information, they can't get around that. That also works on forms. So if you have a form that may be asked for the gender or ethnicity, and those are not shown to the hiring managers, they won't see that on the form. So you can't really get around it. Okay, so I think that's it. I know there was a whole lot of questions that I saw, or maybe not that many questions, but I saw questions out there in chat messages about some things out there. So hopefully we were able to get all those answered for you. And so you can see that out there. Let me just see these questions. Is the quick icon to open code tables only shown when the security profile is access assistant configuration? So I'll just read Volo's answer in case you did not see that. It's visible to all HR admins who have access to the code tables. So if you don't have access to code tables, you won't see that little gear icon that I was showing you before on the various screens. Let's say I go to their address. You won't see this if you don't have access to the code tables. Does moving candidates to a clone position alert the candidate that they've applied to a new job? It does not do that right now. And as Brittany says, it's a good idea. So I know a lot of you are familiar with the customer feature request area right here. Go ahead and submit that as a new idea. And I guess my link isn't working. Submit that as a new idea out there. And we do add these. As you are probably aware, a lot of these things have come from you or your clients, a lot of these ideas. So that's where we get a lot of our ideas. Of course, not everything, but we get a lot of ideas from there, and especially if it's highly voted upon. So if you like it and you tell your clients and they all like it, we're going to see that as a very popular thing. So that's where that comes from. All right, let me bring up a quick slide here, and then I will end the webinar here a little bit early. So let me just change this over. So thank you for joining us today. I do want to remind everybody, if you want to see all these things again, you can join the client release webinar on Friday. A little bit of a scheduling change. Normally we do it at 1 o'clock Eastern. At a conflict, so now it's at 12 o'clock Eastern. Might be a little early for those folks on the West Coast or even further west, and we do apologize to those people. I'm here, so I always fight for the West Coast and further west. So 12 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock on the West Coast here. And then the release date right now, unless some major thing happens, it's going to be Monday that it'll be available for everybody. We always put a little caveat because sometimes we find some, last minute showstopper. But right now it is on the POC site. So feel free to log into your POC site, look around, try these things out, and let us know your feedback on that. We really do appreciate it. So thank you for joining us today. I appreciate your time and your questions and your feedback. And we hope to see you all again on Friday. Thank you so much.